No, get pictures on this side, Joe. I wanted a picture of her. Let him go. I wanted a picture of this. Water, Jesus.
Yeah, it's a cave.
Oh, Jesus. Take pictures. Can I get on that side? Water just...
On your head, Maverick.
Second low spot is lower than the first one. It's lower than the first one.
Wow, that is pretty low. Guys, I don't really have to duck.
Yeah, you don't have to duck because you're so short.
I don't have to duck either.
In all of North America. In fact, there's only 4 worldwide. There's one in France, there's one in Slovenia, one in Barbados, and this one. So that does make this a rather unique experience. Now, one of the reasons why I stopped here is back in the 1930s, during the time of the Depression, there were no jobs and nobody had any money. So the owner of the cave at that time had to figure out a way to pay his bills. And he had this idea that he would grow a crop down here in the cave, harvest it, take it to Springfield, sell it, put some money in his pocket. What on earth do you think he could grow down here in a cave?
Minerals.
Well, that grows naturally. This is more of a form of produce
Water.
in a garden.
Water?
Mushrooms, little button top mushrooms. They say he grew those because he was just such a fun guy. Okay, anyway, we no longer grow them, but this is the last of several that he had. And actually, I just thought that was a really good idea he had. It was a really good use of his resources, and that got him through those hard times. In fact, I guess restaurants in Kansas City would come down and get his mushrooms. So kudos to him. That was good thinking. All right, we're going to switch gears here. If you look up at the ceiling, you see all these little tiny things hanging down. All the little tiny things hanging down are what we call soda straws. And we call them that because they grow in a hollow tube-like shape, just like a drinking straw. And that's how most of the formations in the cave start out. And that happens when the water on the surface finds its way down through the bedrock and the limestone, and it works its way down into the cave. As that water travels, it picks up minerals along the way. And the primary mineral it picks up is calcite. So the water carries the calcite into the cave, the water eventually evaporates, leaving the calcite behind, and that is how our formations begin. And we're going to go up ahead and we're going to see what they look like when they've grown up some. But here's a fun cave fact. Most caves are the mean or the average temperature of the ground above them. This cave is 60 degrees, and it's 60 degrees all year long. Makes it feel warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There's one in Texas, I know I got Texas people, one in Texas that is 70 degrees down around San Antonio. Natural Bridges Cave. And it's 70 degrees already. Soda straws, and they will grow somewhere between 6 and 10 inches long. And then at that point, that calcite will begin to clog up that hollow center area, and the water will start to drip down around it, forming what we call stalactites. That's what all these are, hanging tight to the ceiling. Now, this particular stalactite that my light's on, it's kind of special because of the formation it makes. It has its own name. And this is what we call cave curtains or cave drapery. And it makes this type of formation like this right here because the ceiling is kind of slanted, so it causes the water to drip down at an angle, leaving behind what looks like curtains or drapes. And if you watch, as that water continues to drip, it'll drip down here to the ground. That calcite starts growing upward, forming what we call a stalagmite. It might grow to reach the ceiling. I see some young ones here. That's a good way to remember that, by the way. When I was about 7 years old, my folks took me to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico. And I always remembered the tour guide saying, a stalactite holds tight to the ceiling, stalagmite might grow to reach the ceiling. That stuck with me all these years. So it's a good way to remember that. Who knew I'd be saying it myself eons later? So I bet you guys will remember that, won't you? I bet they do. All right, now, these two formations are lined up where they could possibly grow together someday and form what we call a column or a pillar. That's going to take a little while. They've estimated that the average rate of growth of the formations in our cave is approximately 1 cubic inch per 100 years. So that's going to take a day or two. So we're going to stick around and watch that grow together. Another formation I want to point out is if you look along the cave walls, it looks like there's something flowing down the sides. This is actually a formation that we call flowstone. And this happens when the water seeps into the layers of the limestone and drips down. The different colors are due to different minerals. Like this that my light's on right now, it's got a lot of iron in it, so it's got that rust color going on. Calcite is pure white, but it's the minerals that the water carries in that gives the cave a whole array of color. All right, we're gonna go up to the next stop. By the way, what we're driving on is an old ancient riverbed. Where the road goes, the water flows. Water flowed out that direction. So they really didn't have to dig a whole lot in here. Some gravel down, smooth it out, and there we go. All right, here we go.
That's why animals burrow in the sand.
Isn't it kind of cool that a river used to flow through here and not the cave before that?
Yo, that's cool. It's all iron. Oh yeah, that was probably
We talked about stalactites, stalagmites, columns, pillars, flowstone, all your basic cave formations. That brings us to this right here. This is not a cave formation, okay? This should not be in our cave, but yet here it is. This is a well casing, or a well pipe. Now, how did a well casing get in our cave? In 1941, there was a farmer that lived up top and he wanted water. So he needed to dig a well. He knew that the cave was here. He did not want to cause any damage. So he walked around up top and he measured and scratched his head and calculated, did all the math. And he declared, if we put that well pipe right here, it'll miss the cave altogether. Oops, he miscalculated by about 10 feet. He wanted it on the other side of the cave wall. When they realized that they hit the cave, they came down to see how much damage was done. They took a look at it and they thought, you know what? It's out of the way, let's just leave it alone. They already made a hole in the ceiling, so anything they might try to do to correct it was just going to cause more damage. So they decided to leave it. Then some old boy got to thinking, he's like, you know what? We're down here anyway. Let's just go ahead and drill down a little further. So they did go ahead and drill down another 50 feet. They hit water, and everything turned out very well. Okay, that's the last one I got. I have no more in my repertoire, but anyway. This is solid black cast iron when it first came to the cave. Through the years, the cave has embraced it and given it a nice coat of calcite. But from every mistake, you can learn something, and this is no exception. If you look up top, where the well casing came to the ceiling, you see these ridged areas going behind it. Those are the start of some new cave formations. Some cave curtains or cave drapery, just like we saw back there. Those formations started growing in 1941 when well casing came through. So that would make those baby curtains 85 years old this year. So we learned the age of the cave formation, which is really cool. And then we measured the growth along that ridge area at the longest point to be 3/4 of an inch. That's where we get that estimated rate of growth. Now think about that for a minute. It took 85 years to grow that much. Think how old these brown curtains are here up in front of us. Of course, we have no idea how old those are. The official tour guide handbook just says they're very, very old. All right, there goes Chris. Hey, Chris. And here comes Joel. Joel's well casing 90 feet in search of water. So we are 90 feet below the surface right here at this point. We have gone underneath the parking lot. We've gone underneath the county road that y'all came in on, and we're going into the side of a hill. So we're not really going down, the land is going up on top of us. All right, we're going to go on up here at this next stop. As we go forward, behind that brown curtain is a beautiful example of a column or a pillar. Be sure to check that out. I don't know. dog, Juno. You all may have noticed the statue of a dog in our pavilion on your way down to the visitor center. That is dedicated to Juno the bloodhound. Anyway, they're out hunting, and Juno chases a small animal into a small hole in the side of the hill. Well, Mr. Knox goes to call for Juno, and Juno didn't come out. But Mr. Knox could hear his dog, he was whining and whimpering. Well, being fond of his dog, he goes back to his house, he gets himself a candle or a lantern. They did not have flashlights back then. He goes to that hole inside of the hill where his dog went in. This is a very small hole. And I'm going to show you all this hole at the very end of the tour. So Mr. Knox gets down on his belly and he does that army belly crawl. He crawls in there 5, 10, maybe 15 feet, and he realizes he can stand up. Everything had opened up for him. And that is when he realized he had himself a cave on his property. Well, he finds Juno, he gets his dog, takes his dog back home. Everything's great with the dog, and I'll get the rest of that story here in a little bit. But the reason why I think Juno was whining and whimpering is he'd wandered into an area so dark he had never experienced before. And he probably lost his sense of direction and couldn't find his way out. So I'm going to show you what Juno experienced. If everyone would be so kind as to make sure all your lights are totally dark on all your devices. I'm going to count to 3, 2, 3. And that is the absence of light. And your eyes will not adjust. At this point, I usually tell folks, if you need to make any adjustments or pick your nose, now's the time to do it because nobody can see you. Yeah.
I can't see.
Yeah, you can't see. You know, I've been told that if a person was down here for over 40 days in total darkness, there's a good possibility they would lose their eyesight permanently. But we're not gonna be down
Especially
here.
if they just walk into the sun.
Yeah.
They just
especially
walk
that
into
would-
the
that would
sun.
hurt. Yeah, but we're not gonna be down here that long, so. But the first folks that came to the cave, now it's pretty bright in the total darkness,
Sure.
but I wouldn't wanna explore the cave this way.
Are you sure?
But in 1887, we were introduced to something very special, the Edison bulb. Now in 1887, this was some amazing technology. This was like something from the future, and it was. And Fantastic Caverns had a steam-powered generator, and it would generate electricity, and it would power the lights here in the cave. Now, mind you, this is several years before they had electric lighting in Springfield or the surrounding communities. So people would come from all over. It's like, let's go to the cave. Everyone would go cave. But they were not coming to see the cave. They were coming to see the new invention, the light bulb. That was the main attraction. Can you kids imagine planning a whole family outing to go see a light bulb? It was kind of funny now, but back then that wasn't a big deal. And they did use that generator up until the early 1900s. Then they switched to a Delco battery system. Sometime after that, they got electricity put in down here, and they had an expert in theater lighting come through. And he said, you know, in your cave, he goes, you don't want to hang the lights from the ceiling. He said, if you shine them up from below, that's going to better show the beauty and dimension of the cave. And I'll show you what he meant by that. It really shows up in this area right here. This is the way they used to see the cave. That's why we see it today. So what a difference lighting can make in how we see something. And did you have a question?
Yes. How would the light bulbs power if we're in a cave?
Well, we got electricity in here now, but before it was through a steam-powered generator. And to be quite honest, I'm not really sure how all that works, but it did. It's kind of like operating a steam engine, you know. It worked that way. And how they got it set, I'm not real versed in that. I don't really know. I'd have to ask my neighbors. How that works.
How long would that take? How long would it take?
Riding like
Could you imagine exploring the cave with the candle?
That'd be really Cool. Get that so we can put it in our group chat. Yes. Okay, I don't know how to do that. That's when I would have to call. Why would she call?
If we were to go down and explore the lower level, we would literally be crawling on our belly. Because that narrows down to about 3 feet wide and about 18 inches high. And the fantastic system starts about 3 miles away from here, out towards our Springfield Branson Airport. And in that area, there are a lot of these sinkholes. And this area is what is referred to as the recharge, or the starting point of the cave. When it rains, the runoff water drains down into those sinkholes. If it rains enough, that water starts converging and forming an underground river. And it will flow all the way down to 3 miles. It will enter our system over here, this next depression or sinkhole. It'll come through this way, it'll meander around, it'll go under here, go on down the hill, and discharge at what we call Indian Spring.
I hear a little cracking sound, right?
What?
I don't want your voice to I did not. Like you're just walking with a match and then you're just like looking at the ceiling and you're just like, I would love that. Oh, yeah, but then again, no, there's like
And we call it that because in the 1960s, they built this stage and they started having underground concerts down here. They had a weekly variety show on Saturday nights called Farmerama. And on occasion, they would invite some of the big names of country music to perform down here. They would record the show and air it on NBC radio later that week. And that went on for a number of years. But the acoustics are absolutely amazing down here. And if you're familiar with the little town called Branson, Missouri, there's a group down there called the Presleys. They were the first music show on the 76th Strip in Branson, and this is where they got their start. So really, all those music shows in Branson originated here, because they're the ones that took it down there. But anyways, the acoustics are, like I said, amazing down here. I do have a little demonstration for you. Mr. Knox did discover the cave in 1862. However, he did not place that ad in the paper for exploration until 1867. He waited 5 years, and the reason behind that is the American Civil War was going on. And Mr. Knox knew if word got out that he had a cave, either the Union or the Confederate Army would come through and take it. Both armies were in this area at that time. Both armies were actively seeking out caves. This is why Mr. Knox kept quiet about it, didn't tell his family. He didn't even want a whisper of it getting out because he knew he stood to lose everything he had and perhaps even his own life if he stood in defense of it, because that's just the way things were back then. But anyway, so that's why he kept quiet about it. But when the soldiers found a cave that they wanted to use, they would go in and they would start digging out cave soil, preferably soil that contained bat guano. And they would take that soil and they would fill these large vats with it. These were called leaching vats. So they would fill that full of cave soil, and then they would take water, they would run it over the top of that soil. That water would then run down through the soil, and it would come out down here in the form of a muddy slurry. And that was a process called leaching out the minerals, because that's what they were after, the minerals that were in the cave soil. And they were water soluble, so the water would wash those minerals out into this slurry. So then they would take that slurry and they would start cooking it. And they would cook it in large kettles that they would place at the mouth of the cave. And they would cook that all day long. At the end of the day, when all the water was finally cooked away, what they were left with were these crystals that stuck to the sides and the bottom of the pot. Those crystals contain something called potassium nitrate. also referred to as saltpeter. And they took those crystals and crushed them up, mixed it in the right proportions with potash and sulfur. They came up with gunpowder. And gunpowder was something that was in high demand during that time period. So in my opinion, Mr. Knox was a very wise man, keeping quiet about his discovery of the cave until after the war had ended. Did you have a question?
Is that actual fire?
It is actual fire. It is fueled by propane. Yes, it is actual
How's the
fire.
wood not burning?
Well,
It's behind it.
yeah, it's behind it. There's a little like a gas stove or something. That's how that works. Okay. No, that's the way they did it back in 1860. They went over and flipped the switch and started the fire. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Now fast forward to the 1920s, during a time in our country called a prohibition, when the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages was pretty much outlawed throughout the land. Somebody thought, well, that didn't mean underneath the land. They thought this would be a great place to put in a bar. So they put in an illegal speakeasy down here. They had a bar that ran the length of that rock. They had a dance floor out here. They had gaming tables. They had piano down here. And they kicked up their heels for about 3 years. Then they got shut down. So all things come to an end. Yeah, actually, I tried to do a little research on speakeasy on my own. I didn't find out a whole lot because it was, illegal. But what they would do to account for the vehicles that would be down here during that time is they would have square dances up top. So I guess people would go up and dance and then sneak down here and get a little refreshment and then go up and dance some more. And that's how they got away with it. But I did also find out that it had been rumored that the county sheriff had frequented the speakeasy. So that might be why they got away with it for 3 years. I don't know. All right, we're going to go on. We're going to see a part of the cave that you have not seen yet. The ceiling's going to be a little low through this passageway.
This guy was on a giant bed. Now look at my legs. Wow. That is beautiful.
Wow.
That is pretty awesome. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Knox is mad at it.
No, it doesn't.